Courtney flew towards the mirror, almost tripping over Grace's wheelchair, which was still in the bathroom. Courtney pulled the shorts off and tried undoing the chain and lock around her waist. She had little success. All she did was irritate her hands. She turned toward Grace, who was in obvious discomfort. She was still feeding off the bag of oatmeal on the chair. There was enough to last her all day. Courtney made her way around front and pulled the pacifier out of her mouth, oatmeal continuing to flow out of it onto the jumper she was wearing. Melanie noticed the feet of the jumper were darker than usual and looked wet. Grace managed to choke forth a few words, expressing her discomfort. "Get me out of this," was her plea. Courtney worked on the restraints, which came off easily enough. They were identical to what they had used on Melanie. The trouble came after she had unlaced the upper body restraint. Grace's legs had been put through a padded crotch harness in the seat that had some sort of locking mechanism to it. She couldn't pull Grace out of the chair without opening it. "I can't get you out," Courtney said in defeat. "Please," Grace wailed. Her body shook as she deposited more into her evidently overflowing diapers. The jumper was becoming discolored around the crotch area, and down the legs. Her diapers were leaking big time. "I can't. You're locked to the seat." Courtney looked up as she heard the door open. It was Melanie. "Tee off in 5, she said, exiting quickly. Courtney looked back down at her crying friend, not knowing what to do. She cleaned up her face, wiping away the tears. She sat Grace back and tried to make as comfortable as possible. She refastened the restraints. She didn't want her getting in more trouble. Courtney pulled the large shorts she had been provided back on and wheeled Grace out of the bathroom. She realized the oatmeal was still running into her lap. Courtney reached over and turned off the flow, stopping the gooey mess from collecting in her lap. "I'm going to take you to the ranger and have him escort you to the clubhouse. They can call your mum and maybe get you out of here," Courtney said. "No," protested Grace. "They'll catch me again before the ranger does." Courtney frowned. Grace was really stressed. She left her by the ranger station, with much protest from Grace. It was the best she could do. Courtney waddled back to the 10th tee, trying to prepare herself for the last 9 holes. Between the diapers and her troubled state of mind, it would be quite a ride. Melanie smiled to herself at how well everything was going. Courtney was completely helplessly once again in diapers, not to be changed anytime soon. The new mix was in the water bottle, the rest of the cheerleaders were in place, and the weather was nice. How much better could things get? Courtney frowned at her predicament. The diapers were of little consequence right now. She had a golf tournament to win. She instinctively kept trying to adjust her shorts, having little luck. They were so tight, there was no way to get them to a comfortable position. She glared at Melanie briefly. This was obviously her doing. She barked for a club and lined up her tee shot. She swung back, not prepared for what was about to happen. As she connected with the ball, she lost balance, falling backwards onto her padded rear. She hadn't even been aware of the need to go, but her bowels relieved themselves upon impact. A warm mess began to spread across her backside, forcing its way through the tightly packed diapers. She gasped and stared at Melanie in outrage. All she saw was a big grin on her face, pleased at how things were going. "All she wants for me is to lose my cool," thought Courtney. "Keep it together." Courtney stood up, face contorted slightly. She was still going in her pants. She could barely stand the sensation. She shivered slightly as she walked off the tee box. "I'm going to get you for this later," she growled at Melanie as she walked past. Melanie followed her down the fairway, smiling all the while. Tiffany stared at the other girls in the room with her. She wasn't quite sure where they all were. It just wasn't much fun. There were 5 of them now, all in fair-sized room, decorated completely in pink. The walls and floor were rather thickly padded. This was obvious by how far the wheelchair wheels cut into the floor. There were changing tables, piles of diapers, and 12 hammocks hanging from the ceiling, also pink. The dimensions of the room were hard to distinguish because of the uniform color. She suspected it was designed this way. Tiffany turned her attention to each of the girls. Every one of them was in the same setup that she was, diapered absurdly thick and uncontrollably filling them. Periodically each of them would fart loudly as their laxative-filled bodies put more and more away in the disgusting diapers they were in. Melanie had really lost a screw with this one. Each one of them turned as a door opened. 2 more girls were wheeled in, and set in line with the rest of them. The 2 people that wheeled them in remained this time, however. They both moved toward Tiffany. One produced a key, and the other wheeled her towards one of the large changing tables. "Am I finally free?" she thought. The duo removed all of the restraints keeping her in the chair. They both lifted her onto the table, which was surprisingly soft. They removed the thick jumper, and threw it in a bin on the side of the table. Next were all the diapers. They cleaned her up, and left her strapped to the table. One of the attendants departed, and came back with a large rubber bag. Tiffany squealed softly as a rubber tube was jammed up her butt. They gave her a complete enema, and began taping diapers back on her. These were even thicker than what she had been wearing before. Was there no end? All of the girls in the room received the same treatment, each cleaned up and freshly diapered, one by one. After which, they were moved to one of the hammocks hanging from the ceiling. The hammock's thick fabric folded around them, almost cocooning them. After they were all put in their hammocks, the attendants departed, leaving each one to sleep. "Looks like about a 9-iron, Melanie said. She thrust the club at Courtney, who took it with a displeased look. "You think this is funny?" she asked spitefully. "Yes," Melanie chuckled. "I think it's hilarious. Wait till you see what we've got planned for after the tournament."